Hello everyone. In this video, let's learn about Kantianism. Kantianism is introduced by German philosopher Immanuel Kant. Kant's theory is an example of deontological moral theory. According to these theories, the rightness or wrongness of the action does not depend on their consequences but on whether they fulfill our duty. As you all know, there are two wide areas of ethical theories. They are teleological theory and deontological theories. As per teleological theory, the moral rightness of an action depends upon its consequences. If the consequences of an action is good, then the action is ethical. That is teleological theory. On the other hand, deontological theory says the moral rightness of an action does not depend upon the consequences. On the other hand, it depends upon the duty itself. So, here the duty is given higher importance than the consequences of the action. Here, this Kantianism is dependent on or coming under deontological theory, therefore, it focuses on duty than the consequences. This Kantian theory is completely based on the concept of goodwill. Goodwill, according to Kant, means the action done for the reason of principle from essence of duty, nothing else. It means human ability to act according to the concept of law. If an individual can perform any action mainly with the intention of fulfilling his duty, then that person can be considered as a person with goodwill. Action is morally right only if the person's performing it is motivated by goodwill and vice versa. It means you must be doing your duty, then you can consider as a person with a goodwill. Here, following the rules, it is your duty, and if you follow, then you can be considered as a person with a goodwill. That is what Kant says. Kant believed that there was a supreme principle of morality, and he referred to it as categorical imperative. Here, imperative means a command. An imperative is a command. For example, pay your taxes, don't kill animals. These things are commands, and imperative is just a command. Hypothetical imperative, these imperative commands conditionally on your having a relevant desire. It means only if you want to do something, then you have to do it. It is more like if you are willing, then you can follow that command. If you are not willing, then you can reject that command. For example, a command like if you want to become a doctor, take science, then it is a hypothetical imperative. It is more like only if you want to become a doctor, you have to take science. If you don't want to become a doctor, then you can reject this command. It is called hypothetical imperative. Next thing is categorical imperative. Here, categorical means without exception, and imperative, it is like a command. Therefore, a command unconditionally. The command that must be followed regardless of desires. Whether you are willing or not, you have to follow these commands, then it becomes categorical imperative. Here, your desire is not important, but the rule. You have to follow this rule. For example, don't cheat on your taxes. If you are living in an economy, you are using the resources, therefore, you have to pay the taxes. Whether you are willing or not, it is not important. It is a command you have to follow. Then it is a categorical imperative. Here, Kant's theory is based on categorical imperative, that is, a law which you have to follow, whether you are willing or not. Here, Immanuel Kant proposed a certain formulations. There are two formulations. First one, the Universability Principle. Act only on that maxim through which you can at the same time will, that is, it should become a universal law. Here, the maxim means rule or principle on which you have to act. Universal law is something that must always be done in similar situations. Maxim is simply a rule or a principle. Universal law means anything that you have to follow in the similar situations. For example, sometimes while giving the judgments, the judges prefer to see whether such kind of cases happened in the past. In case such cases were there, then they give judgment based on the judgments given in the older case. Such kind of situations can be considered as a similar situation, and therefore they are following the similar results. So here we can say the actions which are done in the similar situation, that becomes universal law. Here, this particular command, the Universability Principle, that says act only on that maxim through which you can at the same time will, that it should become a universal law. In simple words, I can say act only on rule that you would be willing to see everyone follows. Here, this command says that you are not allowed to do anything yourself that you would not be willing to allow everyone else to do as well. It is more like, if you are doing some action, it must be an ideal action. You are not supposed to do something which you don't want everyone else to follow. An action, it must motivate others to follow. Such kind of actions are the one you have to perform, not something which you don't want everyone else to follow. That is what the Universability Principle says. Here, if you expect other people to keep their promises, then you are obliged to keep your own promises. If you want everyone else to follow or keep their promise, then you have to keep your promise. If you are breaking your promise and expecting everyone else to not to not follow your action, then you are not an ethical person. You have to follow the rule, then you can expect everyone else to follow the rule. That is what the formulation 1 says. Coming to formulation 2, the formula of humanity. Act so that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or in that of another, always as an end and never as a mere means. Never treat human being as means, but always as an end. Here, what is means and end? Means and ends I can simply explain with the help of an example, that is using a coffee cup to drink the coffee. If the coffee cup gets broken, you will not stop drinking coffee, right? So here this coffee cup is just a means to your end, that is drinking coffee. Drinking coffee is the end and cup is just a mean. The things that are used for fulfilling our desire can be considered as means, but we are not here. This formulation of humanity says we are not supposed to treat human being as mere means. We have to consider them as ends. We should not treat human beings like these coffee cups. Just because this particular cup is broken, we can throw it away and we can use something else, but we should not treat human being like a means. We are not supposed to treat them as a tool or machine. They are the ends. If you are an organization, then your workers are the ends, not the means. That is what formulation 2 says. Kant argues that a person is good or bad depending on the motivation of their actions and not on the goodness of the consequences of the action. Kant argues that one can have moral worth only if one is motivated by morality. In other words, the person's emotions or desire cause them to do something, then that action cannot give them moral worth. It is more like you have to be a person who is motivated by goodwill, then If you don't have goodwill, then you are not an ethical person. In conclusion, Kant believes that morality of all the action can be determined by appealing to the single principle of duty. I have said in the beginning itself, this Kantianism is a deontological theory. It focuses mainly on the concept of duty, not the consequences. What happens at the end is not important. How we are doing the particular action, that is more important, both according to deontological theory as well as Kantianism. Thank you.